Okay, welcome everybody. We will get started. So it's 101. So my name is Mê-Linh Lê, and welcome to the second part of our systematic review workshop series. My colleague Janice Linton is here as well, and she will be covering the chat today for anybody who was at our session last week. We just kind of flip back and forth. So welcome everybody. So before I begin, I just wanted to acknowledge the lands where we sit today. I'm at the Bannatyne campus today, and I just want to, oh, sorry, just getting some pop-ups here. Please excuse me there. So the University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, the Ininiwak, the Anishinawak, the Dakota Oyate, and the Denesaline, and on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. I respect the treaties that were made on these territories and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past. And I'm dedicating myself to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So as I just mentioned, we are here for the second part of the session, of the series, Building Your Systematic Review Step by Step. So we'll get into that, what that means. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you haven't had a chance yet, to register for the upcoming sessions, and the link is provided there. And you can also register from our knowledge synthesis page, which I'm sure Janice will link kind of at some point in the chat. Okay, so before, and I should just say too, again, my name's Mê-Linh, and I want to also acknowledge that there are several health sciences librarians who work out of the Neil John McLean Health Sciences Library. And although this session is open and available for everybody at the U of M community, these are the 5 health sciences librarians, and we're listed here. So if you are within the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences and have questions, please feel free to contact us. And we have our kind of a QR code to our booking here. If you're outside of the Rady Faculty of Health Sciences, depending on what your program is, on the U of M library page, you can access whoever your liaison librarian is, and maybe Janice would be kind enough to post a link for them. And so we know from the registration that we have attendees from kind of almost all areas, I would say, a lot of sciences, social sciences, and hopefully the content today will be general enough that everybody can get help from it, but for specific questions, really encourage you to contact the liaison librarian in your area. Sorry, I'm just gonna admit some people here. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping before we get further into the session. So the first is that I do encourage you, or actually ask that you just keep yourself muted, just for the size of the class today, as well as the fact that we are recording. It's just better to have it muted and your video off, just so that we don't accidentally kind of catch any part of you on the recording. Janice will be handling the chat, so please just feel free to ask questions in the chat, and she will also let me know if any questions come up that I should stop and just address for everybody, or maybe I haven't been clear in how I've talked about something. And we have a few kind of polls throughout this session today, so encouraging you to participate in those, just so we can kind of get a good sense and kind of test or evaluate how well things kind of are coming across. And just want to reiterate, for those of you who are graduate students and who are attending these sessions, if you register and attend all 5 sessions, you will be able to have this added to your experience record. And we will contact you once it has been added. It's kind of a bit of a process, and it'll probably happen in early June, I would say. So if you don't hear from us by the end of June, feel free to reach out and ask about it being added before then. But it just there's a little bit of kind of administrative work that we need to do on our end, and that the Experience Record Office needs to do on their end to get it added. If you are not a graduate student or your faculty or instructor, unfortunately, this is not available for you, but hopefully you still get a lot of benefit from the sessions. And I want to kind of let people know that this is not the session that is going to be about how to search databases. So it is just as important because having a strong foundation for your systematic review or other knowledge review research project is extremely important and will save you a lot of time and kind of frustration if you just set up the process really well right from the start. So the session on Thursday is going to be about how to search databases properly. So if you want to kind of get into that, we will do that then. And that session, just as a reminder, on Thursday will actually be an hour and a half, but the session today is just an hour. And so really what we're trying to talk about today is how do you set up that foundation or that groundwork, especially in regards to the documentation for your systematic review. And it is, as kind of we talked about a little bit yesterday, but this isn't just kind of what is recommended. This is what is required by these publishing bodies, and to show that you have kind of adhered to methodological requirements and that you have documented what you need to document. So again, setting this up right from the start will really help as your project moves through all the different stages and as you get ready for publication. So before we kind of get into that and to kind of kick things off and get everybody thinking about documentation, I thought we could start with kind of a quick little Menti question. And so you can use the QR code here, or you can click on the link. And I should note that I have posted all the slides for this session on our library page. So if Janet hasn't already, maybe you could throw that into the chat, Janice. There's a bunch of different things to kind of link out to today from the session. So sometimes it's helpful to just have those links in front of you. Or you can just go to menti.com and put in the code there. So let's take a look at kind of everybody's responses. Hopefully you can still see my screen there. Okay. So I'll just wait a few kind of seconds more here for people to put in their answers. So the question is, when writing your manuscript, which information about the literature search is not required for the published knowledge synthesis review? So I'll just give a few more seconds to allow people to put in their answer. And don't be, feel free, this is all anonymous, so feel free to put in whatever you think it is. Don't feel you have to answer what everybody else has indicated. So I'll just wait a few seconds more. Okay, so this is very promising. So I think we are off to a good start, as the majority of the participants are correct. So when you are documenting everything and writing it up for the final report, the only one of these kind of items that you don't have to include are your search terms that were tested but not used. However, we will get into why you would still want to kind of keep that documented for yourself. Okay, so let me go back to the presentation. So great. So we'll come back to Menti later on, so feel free to keep that open on your screen. So now we're going to I just want to talk about what the objectives. So what I hope you were able to walk out of class today being more comfortable. So I'll leave them up there for you to read. You probably saw them when you registered. But really, for those who are about to start on a review, this session will give you insights into prepping. So we're going to talk about how do you set up accounts across the relevant programs that we might use to do the review. We're going to talk about how do you establish structured kind of folder systems to allow for more seamless organization, and how to get advice on how to document and conserve your searches, which you will need to include when you say publish your protocol and when you publish your final review. So these are kind of the steps that we're going to take. And if you don't feel comfortable with any of those at the end of the session, then please let us know. So the outline for today is, first, we're going to talk about how do you get organized. We are going to have a very brief review on different review types. It can impact your documentation, which is why we need to refresh it. Then we're going to talk about actually documenting your search, even though it is on Thursday that we will talk about actually doing the search. I'm going to give you some insight into how you set up database accounts and what you might want to capture when you are setting up database search logs, which is kind of documenting all the searches that you did, everything you tried out, as well as gray literature documentation tips. And if you're not familiar with what that means, we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so the very first thing kind of you want to do when you're starting your review and you want to kind of actually take the steps necessary to start documenting things. So we're really focused on trying to get organized for your literature search, but your project is going to start before that. So you need to kind of get, in a lot of cases, it'll fall to a grad student. You want to get organized for the project as a whole. So Janice has talked about how, knowledge synthesis reviews are really big projects, and they often involve a lot of a lot of researchers who bring in kind of their own specialized knowledge, their own expertise, and that they can take a long time. And so one of the challenges on a project of this scope is how to communicate and share information, because your team members might be scattered in different locations and may have competing priorities. Everybody is going to think that their specific area of expertise probably is the most important. So really, you need to figure out what tools you are going to use, whether that is for meetings, whether that is for file sharing among the team, kind of while the review itself is active. And you also need to think about where you're going to put any of your supplementary material that you create during the review. And there's a lot of different information that gets created. And sometimes you might think, oh, I'm just going to put it into the finished manuscript and supplementary material. And that's not always the best long-term placement for that. I'm happy to talk about that, but you want to think about other places to put it as well. And kind of a good example of that is that current guidelines for systematic reviews say that you need to make all of your search strategies for all of your databases in your review available for readers. But if the journals don't give you enough space, where are you going to point them to? So we will talk about that. And if you want kind of more ideas, so I've listed for getting organized some kind of suggestions for tools to use. And if you want more ideas, I've linked out to a site from the University of Toronto with some suggestions as well. So setting up a plan and determining, okay, how are we going to write this thing? Is it going to be on Google Docs? Is it going to be in Office 365? How are we going to meet? Where are we going to meet? How much of our supplementary material are we going to post online? Where are we going to post it? All of those things need to be considered and just agreed upon before things get too far.
So Mê-Linh, this is Janice. I was just going to say, I didn't have the link to the link out you just showed.
Oh, sorry, which link? This
so
one?
For more ideas, see here.
Oh yeah, if you click, on the slides, it's just under here under communication. So hold on, I can put that in the chat for everybody.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Janice. Okay. So once you have decided where you're going to store your files for the project, you need to set up a folder structure that organizes the different parts of the review process. So again, on the slides here, there is a link to a sample folder structure. This is one, I feel like I got it several years ago, and it's the one I still use. But essentially, if you click on the link and download it, it will give you a sample empty file folder structure. And sorry, Janice, do you mind just muting anybody who might still be unmuted? And again, figure out what works for you in terms of your folder structure for organization. But again, it's just to give you ideas. You also want to agree on how are you going to name your files. So always, I think this is good kind of practice for anything when you're saving documents, is get rid of anything that has the word final or draft, like draft 1, draft 2, etc. You want to come up with a structured and agreed upon structure. And an example that's listed here is every time you do a search in a database for the articles that will form kind of essentially the data collection for your review, you're going to export what's called an RIS file, which is all of the articles. And when you do the database export to get your search results out of a database, kind of the default file name will be something like export or Scopus 1 or something really similar that is not very descriptive. So you need to give it a name that tells you exactly what is in that file, because when you are dealing with multiple RIS files from multiple databases, you want to be able to tell them apart. And so in the example that's listed here, you can see that we've put the name of the database where we have exported from. We've put the name, the date of the export. We have put what we are exporting. And this is just showing you the number of records. So if we were ever having problems, if you're dealing with thousands and thousands of articles and you're wondering, oh, maybe I lost them, what's happening? This will give you an idea of exactly how many are in each file. So again, choose what works for you, but having something agreed upon ahead of time is, always going to save you headaches. So now that we've kind of talked about general organizational principles, let us talk a little bit more about documentation. Oh, pardon me. Sorry. Actually, I think I got rid of I put it all into this slide, so we're not going to get any more into documentation than that. But if there's questions, just let me know. Okay. So now that we know kind of what kind of things we want to start documenting, or pardon me, how we want to organize our documentation, we also need to think about the fact that there are different review types, and different review types will have different kind of requirements for what needs to be reported on, and therefore it impacts a little bit kind of how you want to document it. So Janice mentioned last week the Which Review is Right for You tool that we have listed on our website. There are also some other tools here that help you determine which review you might want to do. And I just came across this one this week that I thought was really helpful. I actually got already 2 questions that I've pointed people to about it in the last week. So this is a decision tree from Cornell. And it helps you, again, like it's walk right through it and will point you to a specific review type. Not all review types are here. This isn't going to work for every single kind of question that you might have, but I like this one for being very kind of clean and decisive in making recommendations. Okay. So just kind of delving a little bit into different review types and thinking about what kinds of questions. There's some examples here of scoping review questions. So as a reminder, scoping reviews, or maybe new information, scoping reviews tend to answer really broad, exploratory kind of what and how questions. So for example, how is resilience conceptualized within the higher education literature? What is the extent and nature of interventions targeting student resilience within higher education? So they don't necessarily have one kind of answer that will work in all situations, which is more what a systematic review does. Systematic reviews are they are not open-ended questions. They have very narrower focus, and they tend to have kind of yes, no, or we can't tell kind of questions. So these are some scoping review examples. And then an example of a systematic review question on a similar topic. So do mindfulness meditation exercises increase nursing students' level of resilience? That's kind of a yes, no, can't tell question. So think about what kind of question you are attempting to answer. And that will help point you towards what review type you want to do. And then that will help guide a little bit how you want to get ready to do that work. Okay. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I just want to see if I missed anything. Nope, that's it. Okay. So, the level, and we'll talk a little bit about this next week, or pardon me, on Thursday as well. The amount of searching or how you do your searching doesn't necessarily vary based on the review type. You still have to do a comprehensive, exhaustive search for a systematic review as you would for a scoping review. But since all have to adhere to methodological guidelines and reporting guidelines, you want to make sure that you are following kind of guidelines and reporting recommendations for the kind of the review type that you are doing. Okay. So when I talk about methodological guidelines and reporting guidelines, what is that? What is the difference? What does that mean? And a methodological guideline, so the one on the left, is really the instruction manual for how you actually conduct your review properly. So this is that step-by-step, do this, then do that, then do that. It really kind of walks you through things. And some examples are listed here. So depending on your subject area, there are different methodological guidelines out there for you. So I've listed a few here that are the top kind of are related to health. So the Cochrane Intervention Reviews, JBI, which is the Joanna Briggs Institute, the Manual for Evidence Synthesis. This is a health, a lot of nursing comes out of JBI. If you are in the social sciences, there are the Campbell collaboration and the, basically almost like checklists. So do this next. There are also guidelines, methodological guidelines for environmental sciences, as well as a few other kind of more specific disciplines. So if you are outside of health and considering doing a review, this would be a good kind of conversation to have with your liaison librarian, with your advisor. Are there methodological guidelines? They don't exist for every discipline, but there's more and more coming out. So that's the step-by-step. The reporting guideline, on the other hand, it tells you essentially what do you need to include in your manuscript or your final article when you write up the project to make sure that when you publish your article, it's transparent and others could replicate what you did if they wanted to. So reporting guidelines, they don't tell you kind of how to do your project, they tell you how to write it up afterwards. So if you ever are kind of reading a systematic review or any other kind of review project, and the authors write that they conducted their review according to, say, PRISMA guidelines, that is a hint that they don't really have a solid understanding of systematic review methodology, because the guidelines just tell you what to report. The reporting guidelines tell you what you need to report on. And the types of guidelines listed here on the right-hand side, these are the most important for their conversation today, because in order to report properly, you have to first make sure that you document your work. So the next slide here. So these, Janice talked, I think, a little bit about these last week. But the standard one for many review types is PRISMA. And I have it on the next slide too, I think. But it's listed there. You can click out to it. But then what PRISMA has also created are extensions. So reporting guidelines for either other review types, or for example, how you want to report exactly on your search. You can see here that other disciplines, so environmental sciences has roses, and then there's some social sciences as well here too. So they are just, again, discipline specific, but some of them have been, like PRISMA, have been kind of appropriated from health and used in other disciplines. So it may be hard to see here, it's really small. But if you click on the PRISMA S link, what this is all of the things that you need to report on when you are writing up the search from your systematic review or other knowledge synthesis project. So things like the database name, whether you search multiple databases within the same kind of interface, the searches themselves. Did you contact experts in the field? Did you use limits and filters? We'll talk about that on Thursday. Was this how many updates were run? Did your search go through peer review? How many records did you find? How many records were removed due to deduplication? And then you have to indicate where in either the manuscript or in supplementary material, where this information can be found by anybody reading the review afterwards. So all of this, and so if you don't have this, if you don't document this from the start, it can be almost impossible to recreate it. Some of it is impossible to recreate later on if you haven't captured it right away. Okay, so that is why search documentation matters so much. When you have a review, of course, there's always the goal of having of being transparent, accountable, and allowing your review to be reproduced. And so that is what all of these reporting guidelines are trying to promote. And a second kind of more practical consideration is that you need to be ready for kind of any questions that you might get. And we often hear jokes about reviewer two who will just pick apart anything that you have submitted for publication. So being able to back up all of your kind of decision-making process in your search will really serve you well later. And I myself have been asked during the review process, you know, why did you make the X decision instead of Y when you did your search? And why did you look here and not there? So having good documentation from start to finish will help with that. And it is really, really easy to forget things. The odds are pretty good that by the time you submit a manuscript, the literature search will be out of date and you will need to redo the search to make sure that nothing has come out since you did your original search. And if you, again, didn't document and save things, you will need to, you'll need to spend a lot of time kind of coming up with things again. Okay. So what kind of information do you want to keep? You want to keep track of all of the required reporting items as well as details around your test search. So what information to keep? Oh, hold on. Sorry, it just didn't come up for me there. There we go. Okay, so you want to, when you are doing your search, you're building your search, we'll talk a little bit about that next week too. You want to include things like what was your thought process? Why did you make this choice? Why did you choose this term but not that term? You want to include all of the search terms you used, so keywords, subject terms, any revisions. You want to include the databases, the dates you searched, and how many articles you found in each database. You also want to keep all your final search strategies, including all of what's called the search syntax. So that means not just your words, like I searched, myocardial infarction. You want to search you want to indicate I searched myocardial infarction in the title and the abstract and the keywords of this article. So you can't just, if you ever read a review and it just says, oh, we searched for articles with these kind of 5 words, that is not sufficient documentation. You want the whole exact syntax, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. You also want to hang on to all of your original export files of articles from each database. And as we talked about, you want to put appropriate names on so that you can locate them easily later on and know which one belongs to which database. Okay, sorry, my computer is just a little bit slow to move forward here. Okay. So let's move to kind of a sample question to see this in action, because sometimes it's hard to just hear about it. So when you have a question like this one here, what are the disease-related costs in children and adolescents with irritable bowel disorder? So what kind of things would I write down for this search if I was working with a team of researchers on it? And the first thing you want to think about when you have this question is how do you take that and turn it into searchable concepts? So we will talk about the actual concepts in the searching next week, or pardon me, on Thursday. I know I keep talking about Thursday, but we will get to that. But this question right here, how do you turn this into concepts that you can then search on? So in this picture here, you can see that what I've done is I have broken that search into different concepts. So the very first concept here is irritable bowel disorder. So I've just kind of put it up above. For the subject headings, medical subject headings, it stands for MESH. This is where I really just started brainstorming. And so this is a search that I did several years ago. But figuring out what are the subject headings associated with that kind of concept. So inflammatory bowel diseases, colitis. And then I also started, because for a review, you need to include both subject headings and keywords. I started writing out the different keywords that I would want to include. And as I went, I also made notes. So for example, when I put this subject heading, inflammatory bowel disorders, I put explode, which if anybody who've done kind of advanced searching means that it searches this, but it also searches associated subject headings below it. So in this case, that includes colitis, ulcerative, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, and Crohn's disease. So I know that this single line includes this, because what can happen is a reviewer can come back and say, well, why didn't you include Crohn's disease? And I can be like, well, I did. It's actually included right here. So having it documented kind of stands things up. I also make notes for when there are terms that I haven't included. So this is a common one, acronyms. We think, of course, everyone will know that this is only ever going to mean inflammatory bowel disease. But when you do kind of test searches, you will find, oh no, this can mean a lot of different things. It's too broad. So maybe I might want to take it out. And then also, if I get notes from, say, the research team on things to exclude, I can put that in here. So in this case, one of the research members sent me an email in June and said, this is not relevant, don't include this. So I can document, and then I can say, this is why I didn't include it. So when I'm building and documenting my search, this is just a Google Doc. This is the kind of thing that I started writing down. So I would, to brainstorm this, I would look through other review articles. I would talk to the research team. I would look through other reviews on the similar topics, just getting ideas on the topic. And then this is the search kind of concept for the search map for concept number 2, which is the economic burden. So you can see, again, similar thing here. This is the subject heading associated with it. These are the keywords, because you want to essentially be repetitive in a way. You want to capture a topic or a concept through both subject heading and through keyword. And the reason for that is you are trying to do an exhaustive search. It's not something you would do if you need a few quick articles, but if you're doing a systematic review, you need to include all of those variations. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but just making notes as you go. And it'll change over time, and it'll just kind of give you ideas, but you can always come back to it and kind of go over your decision-making process again. And then this is the final search that came out of kind of those messy notes from the left-hand one. So this was the search, if you can see it, that I ran in one database called Ovid Medline. And you can see, so from lines 1 to 15, these are all of the terms that are associated with inflammatory bowel disorder. From line 16 down to 34, these are all of the different ways that I'm trying to get at economic burden. That's search line number 35. And then down here, this is just me excluding articles that are about animals. Not that I think there would be a lot of animal studies in there, but it's just kind of a good practice. And that's the final publication that came out of this. So if somebody reads something like this, if you ever work on a research team and you see a built search like this, it looks pretty straightforward. Oh, this is easy, 38 lines, that's not too complicated. So you don't see all the hard work that went into creating it, but we know, and I very much know because I did it, all of the hours of work that it took to get here. And that I still have the documentation to this day that I could kind of rerun this search if needed. Okay, so here are some searching documentation tips. So when you begin your initial search kind of construction,
Hey,
always,
Lynn,
oh, yes,
can we just had a couple of questions
sure.
based on that really good search that you showed everyone.
Mhm.
Couple of questions. Somebody asked about what's TW, what's KW, and I mentioned to somebody in the chat that they were abbreviations for like text word or keyword. Somebody else asked about, maybe you can talk a little bit about mesh or maybe help us if it's going to be covered more in one of the future sessions. They specifically asked for what's EXP.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
so maybe just a little bit there if you have time, and if not, we can talk about it when we talk about the translation in a couple of weeks.
right, no, and I mean, I'm happy to just give you an idea. So let me just show you an example because it's easier if I can show you. So MESH stands for medical subject headings. So you guys can still, Janice, let me know if you can't see my PubMed screen here.
We can see it. Thank you.
Okay, most of our databases have what are called subject headings kind of behind them. So subject headings are essentially they're controlled vocabulary. So you can't just make up subject headings. They are determined by, in this case for PubMed, by the National Institute of Health. And what they do is they provide, essentially, I'm going to pull one up here. Kind of agreed upon terms for concepts that everyone will know. You, instead of you having to type out all the variations for something, they will say this is the term to use. So one that I actually use pretty commonly is if you were doing a search on, say, cancer and cell phones, instead of you for the cell phones, instead of you having to think of all the different ways that people can talk about cell phones in the literature, so mobile phone or smartphone or cell phone, singular, plural, all of those variations, you can use a single agreed upon term, a subject heading that will capture all of those. And so what happens is when an article comes out, let's take a look at this one, whether in PubMed or CINAHL or whatever database you happen to be using, they will be assigned subject heading. So these are 10 to 15 terms that essentially describe what the article is about instead of the words that it just uses in the text. So these are the mesh or the subject terms that are assigned to this article right here. So I could read through these lists of subject headings and know what the article is about without even reading the abstract or reading the full text of the article. And again, these are not kind of made up. These are agreed upon terms that any articles that are about, say, Crohn's disease and therapy are given this subject heading. So, yeah, systematic reviews, you have to search with both subject headings and keywords. And the reason for that is not all articles are given these. So you need keywords, which would just be me, say, putting in the word inflammatory bowel disease, like just writing that. Not all articles will get subject headings, so you have to include keywords. And because there's always the chance that you might have forgotten a term. So having almost kind of that searching in both ways ensures that you are trying to really find everything out there, which is the point of these systematic reviews. And when you search in a database, so let me pull this back up again. These are what's called your search syntax. So you can see here, this backward slash, this is telling me that this is inflammatory bowel disease. This is a subject heading. Then to be thorough, I have searched it also as a keyword. And what I'm doing here is text word and keyword. That is telling the database Medline where I want it to search. So that's like title, abstract, keywords, all the different places. And we will talk about that next week, what this means. So don't worry if that is confusing for you. So it's just telling the system, this is where I want you to search. And I think the only other thing I didn't mention there was explode. So let me go into the mesh database. I think a good example of this is Canada, okay? So I'm gonna search for the subject heading of Canada. Okay, so subject headings are, they're a hierarchy. There we go. And you can see that it looks like a tree structure. So all of the terms, these are subject headings as well, the provinces, they are all a part of Canada. So if you want to find all articles that have been written and take place in Canada, instead of, again, you writing Canada or Alberta or Winnipeg or whatever, all of those variations, you can search the subject heading of Canada. And if you explode it, it will search all of these as well without you having to do anything beyond clicking a box that says explode it. Otherwise, you run the risk of potentially missing something if you haven't done that. So it's a shorthand for searching all of these subject headings individually. It's just a shorthand to say, I want everything. So I hope that helps a little bit. And hopefully we'll cover it as well in advanced searching on Thursday. But feel free, Janice, to let me know if it's still not clear. Okay.
That was very helpful. Thank you very much.
Very thorough. I could talk about subject headings a long time. Okay, so let's just flip back then to documentation. So always start in the database where you're going to do your primary search. So if you're starting in health, search in Ovid Medline, which we're going to talk about on Thursday quite a bit. If you're in education, use ERIC. If you're in nursing, use well, nursing I still would probably use Ovid Medline, but you want to use the main database, the best one, and build your search around there. Then you will take your search and you will translate it with Janice. Janice will talk about in a week. You want to write down everything that you kind of terms and keywords you used, including the ones that don't really help you or yield any good results. You want to include the dates that you ran the searches, how many results you find, any weird things you notice in the search. If you read through other review articles to get kind of helpful terms, you want to maybe just write that down, especially if you took almost like say you took a whole concept, So say, for example, this search, say somebody decided to do another systematic review, and they decided to do it on inflammatory bowel disease and in, say, teenagers. And they used my lines from search line 1 to 14. That is considered my intellectual property. So if somebody took this and then just used it in their own search, they would need to cite it that they got it from another source. So if you did that, if you got some part of your searches from somewhere else, you would want to include where you got it from and cite them. Hold on, where we go. Okay. And any papers that you use to help you find terms or to test. So again, I'm going to talk about lots of stuff on Thursday, but this is how you test your search. It's called looking for your seed articles. You want to, after you've built your search, you want to make sure that you can find the papers that you know are hopefully out there on your topic. So just write those down as well in your documentation. And let me just see, I think I've got this as something to show you. I can't remember exactly which one this is. So, okay, so this is a search that one of our colleagues did a few years ago. And you can see here that this is what, so she's got her searches that are done in different databases. You can see hopefully the tags along the bottom, one done in Medline. And so you can see she has captured, let me make that a bit bigger. She's captured the name of the database where she did the search. She's got the name of the search, all of her search lines built there, how many articles were found. Scroll down, 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 down. And then how many articles she got at the end. And she did that for each of these databases. So 4 databases in total. They all look a little bit different because that's a quirk of all the databases, and how many total articles she had at the end. So this is her documentation. And then sheets 1 and 2 here, this is kind of almost like her scratch notes. So when she was created the search, what was she finding? How was she kind of going through things? Okay. So the point of all of that is to say that even if you think you will remember, write it down anyways. And there was a paper published in 2018 that found the average amount of time that a librarian spends on doing the search, so the data collection, takes about 27 hours. And the search is arguably one of the fastest parts of a systematic review, but by the time the rest of it is done, there is very little chance you are going to remember all of the little details that went into the design of the search to begin with. Okay. So now that you're about to run your search and you're running your searches in these databases, is that you need to set up database accounts. So a tip about systematic reviews is that you want to set up accounts kind of in each database so that you can save your searches and then quickly rerun them later. So something that is not automatically clear to people is that we have kind of like our vendors, our interfaces, and then within them, we have individual databases. So each one of these, PsycInfo, Medline, Global Health, Food Science and Technology Abstracts, CAB Abstracts, these are all databases contained within a single vendor, Ovid. So if you create an account in Ovid, you can access your searches for all of these. Same thing for EBSCO. EBSCO has CINAHL, it has criminal justice, it has green file, social work abstracts. So creating a single account allows you to use all of these databases. The way I describe that will really age me is that Ovid is like the DVD player. And then these are kind of like the movies essentially that you stick in. So you get different content, but the interface is the same. So that's how to think about the difference between kind of the interface of Ovid and the individual databases within them. So I'm going to quickly show you my Medline account, and I should have logged in ahead of time. And so this is an account, and it is tied to your institutional affiliation. So it's tied to the U of M. So if you ever leave U of M, just know that you will need to, you get a new kind of like Ovid account. So I've already created an account, but I just want to show you what mine looks like. Sorry, it's just been a little bit. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So these are, again, our Medlines will be very different, but these are all of the searches that I have saved and created over time. So I'm going to go to, these are the searches that I saved and created for that irritable bowel disorder and economic burden. So you can see in here, I've saved the searches, I have put the database name, and I've put when I actually did the search. So there's quite a few of them because it was a review that was run over multiple years. If I wanted to rerun them, I could just click it and run it, and it would be recreated right there for me. So that's the kind of information you want to keep. And a reminder that because these interfaces like Ovid have multiple databases, that's why I have put the name of the database in here so that I can remember, oh, this is my search in the Embase database, this is my search in Global Health. Just, again, putting in all that information so that I don't wonder later on about what is actually in here. Okay. So when you set up your database account, you want to use a standard naming convention that includes the name of the project, the name of the database like I had there, and the date of the search. I often also include the SR because that's a reminder to me that it was part of a systematic review. You do not need to include the number of results found, as that would change. So if I ran that search that I just showed you, if I ran it today, I would get a different number than I got when I ran it in 2018 because more articles have come out on that topic. And one thing that I really like about Ovid is that it lets you save your search details with a single link. So if you are on this page right here, oh, this arrow isn't pointing to the right thing, but there's a little, oh yeah, here it is. There's a button that says share search history. And you can click, even if you aren't logged in, even if you don't have an account, you can use this copy search history link. You can send that to anybody and they will be able to open up on their own. So I put the link here for people to try. I can also just, I can throw that in the chat too, just so people can try it. But then you will hopefully see my search that I built quite a while ago. kind of in action, but this is, I would say, one of the most helpful features, and maybe it's because I work with a lot of different teams, but if you are trialing a search, you want to send it to a librarian for feedback, you want to send it to your advisor, or you want to send it to somebody else on your team, that is the best way to do it. You can also copy your search history and paste that into, say, your Google Doc. I use that all the time. So just a really handy feature. Right now, Medline is the only one that has it to the best of my knowledge, but maybe other databases will consider it as well. So again, just documenting everything and noting it down for later. Okay, so where do you document that? So you want to put that into a database search log. So that is where you can document your strategy, all the results, if you, what are called your deduplication results. So say you do a search in Ovid Medline, and you also do a search in Scopus. You are going to have overlap in terms of duplicates. And so how many duplicates did you find and how many did you get rid of? So I've linked out here to a blank search log. Let me open it up. Oh, it's actually in Excel. Hold on. I thought I had put this online, but I must have forgotten. So this is kind of like what I've just been showing you in my documentation is you have the name of the database. This is also linked on our main page, our KS knowledge synthesis page. You have the name of the database, you have the name of the interface, you have your date of your search. The database dates are important to include. This shows you how much information is contained within the database. Medline can go back all the way to 1946, but you might not go back that far. So including that, you can also see, hopefully you can see, let me make this a bit bigger. Maybe I can't. Okay, but you can see that I ran the search on April 19th. April 15th, but it only includes content up to April 12th. And that's because databases load new articles in on a regular basis, but not necessarily every day. So between April 13th and April 15th, I don't have that information isn't kind of there, even though that's when I did the search. So that's why you want to include it. And then you write things like how many articles you found, how many articles there were after deduplication. So you can feel free to use that. You can edit your own. You can see here, this is my search concept maps that I use. And just, I've put in some examples here of what those search logs look like as well. So all for you to kind of use if it's helpful. And I put a filled in log here. Yeah, so this is, okay, I did put it online. So I put in, this is one I did for pediatric readiness. So you can see what a fully filled in search log looks like. I put the dates, how many articles I found, and I would provide all this information to the research team and they use it later on. So all of my stuff is written here just to kind of give you an idea of what kind of stuff you want to be documenting. These are all my databases. This is what I ran in Scopus. All of that information is listed there. Oh, sorry, let me just flip back to my PowerPoint.
Just had a question about what you just showed on the last slide.
Yeah.
This is from Megan. What does order of import refer to?
Oh, good question. So when I don't use this as much anymore. In the past, when we would, you would take articles out of different databases, you would import them into a product like EndNote, which would where you would use it to deduplicate your results. And the order that you imported them impacted which records EndNote kept. So it was important to just put that down so you would know in case there were any questions about, oh, why wasn't this article found or what happened to that? I would say you can just ignore that for now. I don't document that anymore just because we've kind of changed how we do that process, which we will talk about in future classes. Yeah, but very good. I should probably I think I'm just lazy and I haven't gotten rid of that column. Okay, So the other thing to think about is you also want to document your gray literature searches. So gray literature is any information that hasn't been published in kind of like a traditional place. So it's not a journal article, it's not a book. So gray literature, think about government reports, think about websites, social media, preprints, which is articles that people put online before they've gone through peer review, conference presentations. So depending on what your field of study is, gray literature will have varying levels of importance. In public health, for example, gray literature, extremely important. If you're looking for, say, just randomized control trials, gray literature, not as important. So if you are documenting, if you're doing gray literature searching, it's not as structured because you're really kind of like just searching the internet. So you want to just make sure you're documenting the search terms you used, what websites you were looking at, what dates you did the search, and what relevant material you found. There is a sample gray literature log available here. Let me open that up. Okay, so here you can see, sorry, it might be hard to read. Sorry about that. Let me go to Zoom here. Okay, so for this one, you put the date of your search. So say it was today, May 14th. I searched on Google. There's the Google URL. Did I search or was I just kind of skimming? So say instead it was an association website. If it was an association website, maybe you're just browsing all the pages. How exactly did you search? What search terms did you use? Did you find anything? What did you find? So it's a little bit less structured, but equally important to write down. Okay, so I know we're getting it close to the edge here, but I just wanted to quickly go back to Menti just to see how people have kind of gotten the information and if it kind of makes sense. So I'm just going to open up Menti here again. Feel free to go back and I'll bring it back up as well. Sorry, my computer decided to move around a little bit. Okay. So what is wrong? Feel free to just type something in and it's the same Menti as before, but you can just go to menti.com and the code is 9571-9579. What is wrong with this statement? The review was conducted according to PRISMA guidelines. Okay, so it doesn't state which PRISMA. Yes, okay, thank you. It should be reported, not conducted, right? So remember, PRISMA doesn't tell you how to do your search, right? It tells you what to document. So you can say, we're reporting according to PRISMA guidelines. Yeah, so great. Okay, people definitely got that. It is not a methodology. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Okay, so why should you save your search histories in a personal database account? This one should hopefully be pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, and I would say almost every review that I have worked on, we have run the search later on to update it, to make changes. So you want to make sure that you have saved everything just to make it easier for everybody involved. Okay, next question. What kind of information do you want to include in the file name of your downloaded RIS text file? This is so that you can access it later on. And an RIS file, again, is all of the articles that you have downloaded from a database, pardon me, all the records. Yeah, so the database, the date that it is an RIS file, you want to take all of that. Okay, and what information about the literature search do you need to keep for your records? Just give people a second for that one. Do you want to keep your database names? Yeah, the most recent date the search was run, search terms tested but not used, complete search histories. And yeah, the answer is all of them. You won't need to show your search terms that were tested. You won't need to show those to anybody, but they'll be helpful for you, especially if you get asked any questions. Okay, that is all the questions I had there. Okay, so that is the end of the session today. I have put in a link to our evaluation. We read these closely. We're always helpful, or pardon me, always happy to make changes and get feedback from people on what could and couldn't work better. And I'm also happy to answer questions if anything comes up, Janice. I'm sure you've done a great job in the chat. And hopefully this has been a good motivator to attend Thursday's session where we can get really into the searching part of a systematic review. So Janice, let me know if there's anything I should answer. Otherwise, I'll just hang on the line for another minute or so.
Thank you very much, Mê-Linh. Lots of thanks and also some good questions. A few people were asking about when the PowerPoints are going to be put on the website.
So the PowerPoints for the session 1 and session 2 are on the website already.
Okay.
The recordings are the first one is being worked on. I'm hopeful that it'll be up within a day or two, and I will send out an email once it's live. So it just takes a few days for people to process them, but we will put them on the website and I will email them once they're ready to go.
Great. Yeah, really helpful and lots of really good links in the PowerPoint. I'm sure lots of people will be downloading them if they haven't done that already.
Yeah, and the links are also listed on our website as well, under kind of like resources. So those are all on our website as well, like sample folder structures, that kind of thing.
And somebody just asked, how long does it take to conduct an integrative review? And it's just one of the reviews in the review family. What's your best guess for what's it take to conduct a scoping, systematic, or integrative review? Do you have a timeline that you kind of follow?
It really depends I find it depends on the question, the team who's working on it. It can take years. It can take months if everybody's working really hard, or not working hard, has the time to work on it and giving people notice. It really varies. It's really hard to say. I would say most of mine that I work on take minimum a year from when the project is started to when the project gets submitted for publication. Minimum. But Janice, maybe you have a different experience.
No, I agree. It really depends on how much time team members have to put into the review. I'm working with teams that have been working on their reviews for 3 or 4 years. And then I'm working with other teams where they're going to try to address most of this. Well, even then it's about a year. I'm working with a team now that registered their protocol in December. So they probably started their concept in probably September, October, and they're probably going to submit for publication. So that even then that's a year, and that's a team with quite a bit of work. Quite a bit of people they have a number of people who have quite a bit of time to dedicate to this. But because it's a team, it takes time too, to do the back and forth. So well over a year for many.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if there's any other questions too, even about other stuff that we covered, I'm happy, or Janice, to address them here today too. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything. So hopefully I'll see people again here on Thursday and we can get further into things. And again, welcome your feedback from the link on the evaluation page. So thanks, everybody. Bye.